Welcome to the Aromatic Mystery School. Did you know that when you're born, you're given a unique blueprint for your birth chart? And it is possible to make an immaculate blend just for your astrology based on your birth chart with essential oils. And so today we're going to talk about aromatherapy with astrology with the lovely Shellie Enteen. Shellie, this is so nice. What a surprise to see you. How are you today?
Well, I'm well. I'm in finally a little bit of good weather here in the upstate of the Carolinas in the United States.
Very
So,
good. So tell us a little bit about how you've been working with aromatherapy and astrology in the past.
well, I was an astrologer before I found aromatherapy. And in some of the major textbooks that you might have, or the books on aromatherapy that talk about subtle aromatherapy, which is the effect on emotions and spiritual, that type of energy, you will find sections that have to do with how they feel a sign relates to certain aromatic oils or plants. And so when I found that out, that was like getting a new toolbox. And I began to offer people their own blend of essential oils based on the birth chart. And I have had some, wonderful comments about it. One of the things I will say about a blend that's based on the birth chart is that it's going to look at more than your sun sign, because it's going to look at the moon, and it's going to definitely look at Venus because that's what you love. And so you hopefully will make an alignment with aromas that will appeal to that Venus sign and also the Mars sign and also Mercury. And that's about where you would be in the real personal planets area that have to do with the senses and the way the body is moving through life. And so sometimes this can be a blend that helps you when you're in a state where you're not as grounded as you need to be, which the world is kind of giving us plenty of opportunities for that. It's sort of a reaffirmation of yourself. It's not necessarily a perfume. In other words, it's not necessarily something you would wear as a signature scent unless you love it that much. And some of the blends could be that way, but you can use it just, the way you would use any aromatherapy blend. You could diffuse it in your home, for instance, if you don't want to wear it. You could make a
And,
bath.
and what would and what would be its purpose?
Well, like I said, it would be a resonant energy with who you are. So again, if a person is in a place where they need to feel that, or they just want to feel that, then they can have that aromatic experience of themselves. Yeah. Sometimes the aromatic experience will be used to help if, situations are happening that you need to be more anchored in yourself, and you can use it then.
Yeah. And so that would help you if you feel kind of out of sorts and you want to feel more like,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So how does one go about creating such a thing?
Well, you have to know your birth chart. And one of the great things about the internet these days is that there are a couple of sites like AstroTheme and astro.com that will allow you to just go in and put your birth information in. And the birth information has to be the date and hopefully the time, because that can be important, and the location, right? Like that means the city or the, whatever you call it in your country, the location of your birth. And then you will get a chart, and you will get it with the hieroglyphics, but you will also get it with a list that uses words in English that you understand. So you don't have to worry about, what is the sun? What is Venus? What is that sign? It will tell you, it will list it. Like your sun is in Cancer, your moon is in, so you'll be able to take that information. And then if you have access to the zodiac issues in books, I mean, even the wonderful Scylla Shepherd Hanger Aromatherapy Practitioner Manual in volume 2 has a section on this. And then some other people like Valerie Warwood or other writers have actually, I think even perhaps Battaglia in his complete guide might be looking at this, because he does bring in all the subtle energies. So you would have to find a reference for, matching up. And so you might even, I haven't looked online for it, but you might even be able to find
Yeah, you
pages.
can. Yeah, and actually my Tongue of the Trees cards has it. And we do a knowledge base with it in, but it's very ancient knowledge, isn't it? So for example, if you looked in Culpeper, for example, it would say
Yes.
such and such a plant is ruled by Cancer, because the Cancerian archetype is gentle and caring, and it's about the oceans. It's actually usually it's kind of back to front how you would be looking for it, isn't it? So it tends to be talking about the plant rather than the rulership first.
And the plant, right, will have a planet ruler frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the activating hot herbs, the ones that are going to be spicy and stuff, might be a Mars, for instance, and that's a way to go into your aroma. If that plant has an aroma, that will also work. So for instance, like if you look at and also if you look at different authors, you can get different essential oils.
Yes.
And that is one of the reasons that, I rely on my own feeling about it. So if I'm looking at the list, I'm going to, if I know what the qualities are of the aroma, what we're usually seeing about it in a book, then I might say, okay, here's a list for Aries. Okay, let's just say it because we said Mars. Coriander, spice. All right. Also basil, black pepper, rosemary. We see if we're looking at the stimulating, warming essential oils, aren't we? So pretty much, although they will also give you cardamom and pine and thyme, THYME, thyme. So you are able to kind of decide, if you know the aroma, what I find is that the limbic region records that information. And you don't have to smell peppermint to know what peppermint smells like. You can just say, what is peppermint? And you can get that sense of it once you've had the experience. If you haven't ever had the experience of cardamom, that's probably not the one to choose. because you
Yeah, and
want
I would say that when you are thinking about it, it's how that plant makes you feel, really, isn't it? And so
yes,
like so I've got two different ways of doing it. So for example, I would look at Mars is the ruler of Aries, and I would say, right, I'd look at a textbook and say, right, what does it rule in the body? Okay, Mars rules circulation and blood. Which oils deal with circulation and blood? And I would use it that way. But also, what are the qualities of Mars? Well, he's a warrior, he's resilient, he's feisty, he's attacking. So all of
courageous.
those things, as you say, like the things that are hot oils and quite pokey oils, really. Yeah.
But when you are actually also looking at this, you're looking at the sign their Mars is in,
Right.
right? So if you had Mars in Leo, you would be looking at Leo oils with your Mars. Like the Leo oils would keep, all those qualities that you want to have in Mars, the leadership, the courage, then, you can look at those and that would be what I would do. Where
So
is Mars?
I would go grapefruit. What's your thought?
So yes, grapefruit is listed with Leo, but so is bergamot and orange mandarin. And then it goes into other areas like patchouli and myrrh and frankincense. And these are the differences with the authors and their feelings about them. Petitgrain, which I can understand for encouragement, because that's one of the subtle qualities. And particularly if you feel the need to have courage to do something that you haven't been willing to do in a long time, you know, petitgrain, which is part of the orange family, right? That's so there are qualities in different ways that you can, the patchouli would be very grounding and it puts you right back in your body. So you were, really earthed and grounded in self. So it kind of would depend on how you feel about these, as you say, what you like also when you look down at this is going to be the one that you might choose for yourself. Like I'm a Sagittarius sun, right? So they give me dill and clove. They give me cedar pine, helichrysum, juniper, and nutmeg. So the
And
first,
who is they? What book are you using there?
oh, I looked at a few books
All right.
to
Yeah.
make the list because, like I said, there were many different ideas. So Sagittarius is expansive and it has a quality of movement. And I think it sometimes needs to ground. So I might use cedar and I just put on a diffusion today and I had fir in it because it was time for fir. I could feel that my energy needed this now that we're getting colder, and pine, and for the respiratory situations that we're in. But helichrysum is very attractive to me because of its spiritual quality. And the Sagittarian is, sort of aiming the arrow up to the heavens to try to get the information, to the philosophy for the big picture. And the helichrysum, I think, is really a comforting way to do that, but it's very small amounts of it for sure. But it would go into a blend and it would work well.
So I am Cancer, Aries rising, Virgo moon.
Aha.
So how would we blend these oils together? So what sort of quantities are we using? How do we put it together?
Well, I mean, if you're doing a blend, with me, it was always using my nose. Like I would pick it up and if you smell it, you get the strength of it for one thing. Some are mild and some are stronger aromas. So the stronger aroma you might not use as much of, right? And what I was frequently doing to make my blends is to uh, pick one and then smell it together with the next one I thought I would like. And I trust my limbic region. I trust the experience enough to take the first answer that comes in. Like I may think this is a great idea, but if I smell it and it goes no, okay, put it down, try another. And sometimes I also found that at the end of a blend, I could smell it with the one that said no. And sometimes it was a yes. Have you found that yourself?
I don't know, because I don't work with blends that much, Shelley. I have to say I'm a
Oh.
very much a monogamous girl when it comes to to essential oils. I can make blends, but both my mum and my sister are extremely good perfumers, and I will never make a blend that comes out and goes like this. I just don't have that. I blend therapeutically, not from a perfumery point of view.
Yes, yes. Therapeutic blending is like a whole other animal,
It is,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Because even when you're doing that blend, you have several ideas that you could go to.
yeah.
And so you're still using what I'm suggesting is like that knowing that this is the one. It's interesting, because I did a lot of body work when I was living in Florida, and I would make blends. And when I worked in the resort, I didn't know the people, and they came in with something, right? And they needed to be relieved. So once in a while, I would have a feeling that I needed to put a certain oil in there that wasn't exactly totally the therapeutic oil, but it would go well. And then the person would say something to me on the table. They would reveal the need for that on that subtle level. It was
And
working.
definitely do have that happen. Yeah, that
Exactly.
like you're feeling the resonance off the person, and you have like the anchor of the oil that you're carrying around with you, and
Yes.
okay, they need black pepper, and you can't
Yes.
quite explain why, and then as they're talking, okay, that's what's
Right.
going on. Yeah, especially from a personality point of view, I think. Yeah, yeah.
You can when you look at something like Rose, okay, Rose is going to go under the Taurus category, right? Because it is the flower of Taurus. And it might be also in Libra. But if someone is feeling rejected, or they're grieving, or there's an empty nest, you know, then if Rose comes in, that is important. That's something that needs to be addressed. That's an oil that will address it,
Mm.
right? And so it might not be, in the sense of making a blend for someone in a therapeutic, you may not think of it. But if the person is manifesting that, you might think of it. And the good news is you only have to use a drop. You
And
don't.
that was what I was going to next, really. The more sort of, I'm not going to say the word psychic because it's going to have different connotations, but like the more likely that you are that you've picked up intuitively, it says to me that that didn't come from their body, that came from their etheric body. They're like their aura, their energetic bodies, and then you're using much smaller amounts, aren't you? And then from there, again, there's like a plateau, isn't there, where you think, right, the oils have done everything that they can, and so now we'll perhaps need to start working with flower essences.
Yes. Well, the flower essences, yes, particularly if a person is manifesting an issue, because we can get much more defined and we can pick the specifically because of how they're manifesting and how they feel about something. And that's really true, because even taking the idea of, somebody going through a divorce, everybody's not going to have the same exact experience of their feeling nature about it. And with the Bach flowers, you're looking specifically at that. What do you feel now? What is the emotion now? Even with illnesses, people have different ways of having an illness. They'll be angry about having it. They'll be like feeling defeated because they have it, So you go for that specifically. And that you can also see with astrology. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so how does that turn up really? Is that more to do with the houses, do you think, than the signs themselves, where the placements are?
Well, when you're looking at a chart for the astrology itself, you have to look at everything. But when you're looking at the quality of the planet in order to do the individual blend, that isn't quite the same as doing a reading of the chart, if that makes sense. Because you would have to not only take in the birth chart, but the current energies that are affecting the birth chart. So to get the individual blend for your signs that, the personal planets are occupying, that would be just going for the sign of the sun, the sign of the moon, the sign of Venus, the sign of Mars, right?
Yeah.
Mercury.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking it out now. And so when you're looking at the birth chart, I have to look at my candles in it. I can smell one burning. Um, when you're looking at the quality of the birth chart, would you say the quality of Aries in the first house is this, or Aries in the fifth house is this, and go with that sense?
You would do that if you're reading the person's chart. If you're looking at, if we're talking about choosing aromatherapy blends for the signs, then you don't consider the house.
Right, got you.
But in
So,
all other aspects.
so if you're making those kind of blends, so I'm thinking about the videos that Adam and I are doing about Eris and Humea and Gong Gong and the dwarf planets, and we're going into the asteroids. You could go so far, couldn't you? So
Yay.
where do you stop in the universe, Shellie? How many
Well,
planets are you looking at?
okay, my charts are loaded.
Yeah.
I have pretty much, I don't have how many, I have a lot of the trans-Neptunians, the dwarfs. I have the centaurs that I use, and the asteroids. Not all asteroids. You could go, you wouldn't even be able to look at them all. Just, the fabulous three that are left after Ceres became a planet. And, I, in fact, did a reading group for a group of charts for a new baby that was born, doing the synastry of the baby with both of the parents, and of course it was the grandmother who wanted this, the grandmother and grandfather, to see how the baby would be in relationship with them. And I didn't know she was planning. She wanted to see the charts. And so I sent mine, and I didn't know she was planning to send this, the Zoom and everything with charts to the parents. She didn't tell me that. And she was like frantic because there was so much in my chart that she couldn't, how can I just get a simple chart for a beginner? You know?
Yeah.
So I sent her to a certain, and that even the astro themes and stuff, they were also using more things now than usual. So it's kind of, I had to look and find, because I can't take everything off my chart and then put it all back, because she needs it. So I did find a kind of a website, I can't remember what it was, where you could put it in and it would just be the planets, that you know. But in
Yeah, I
terms,
think if you go to Cafe Astrology, no, other around Astrology Cafe, you can click on, right, I only want planets, or I want asteroids, or if I want trans Neptunian, so you can build them up, can't you? So that's it, because I'm not very good at this. I always go there
right,
first. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. Well, that's a great resource
yeah.
for astrology. Very, very good one. So, it is the way it is. But I mean, I've been doing it for a long, long time. I don't know if I were starting out to learn astrology, if I would want to learn it all at once,
Mhm.
because we're working always, just like we are with anything else, with basic principles. And you've got to get those down first before
Yeah,
you can really expand out in any field, really. But particularly, I think astrology, we need to start out with basic.
yeah. And so we're going to do some very small amount of aromatherapy, aren't we, in the Bach Flower Remedies course that you're working at? But mostly we'll be focusing on the 12 healers and the actual Bach Flower Remedies, won't we?
Well, actually, the reason I'm doing that class is because it's more than the 12 healers. It expands out into a system of what is called a track. So I use the idea of Virgo because it's easy for people to identify with a track like this, which is when it's in a negative state, not just always Virgo, but when it's Virgo's desire to serve. And sometimes it becomes a desire because it feels like it needs to be loved. And if I help you, you'll love me. That's the negative thinking. All right. So you overdo it, you overextend, and you lose your boundaries. Right. So there's a flower for that. But then when you lose those boundaries because you overextended, the track will take you into anger. It will take you into anger either at the person who keeps asking you or even, possibly eventually at yourself. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a flower for the anger. That's the second stage of the track. And then there's another flower for when you feel bad about yourself because you're angry, because that's not perfect. Virgo likes to be a perfect presentation. And that is the one that can really be a really major problem for you if you stay in that, the self-blame, the shame, the mea culpa, and you're like beating your breast. So there's another flower for that. And also, there are ways to counsel when you're looking at it. What stage is this person in? So, like, for instance, if you see that the sun sign is Virgo, you're going to know that they have a tendency towards this track. So, you're going to find out where they are on the track because you're going to ask some questions about it, right? So it's like, it's an interesting process, but we're going to go through it nice and slow. You're going to get a few tracks at a time, and you're going to learn other flowers to add anyway. And it's incredibly validating for people if you, for yourself, if you're looking just for you, it will be incredibly validating. But one of the things that I did mention in another interview I did with you is that at certain times I have made what I called an aromatic synergy. And the synergy would be first an aromatherapy blend that I felt would be good for me at that time. You know, if I was in anxiety, I would be looking for those. Okay. If I was, needing to feel more confidence, I would be looking at that. Geranium, I love geranium because that's frequently in blends at those moments because it's a total balancing, you know. Sometimes you need to calm down, but you don't always need to be sedated. As I always say, you don't always need lavender, marjoram. Sometimes something else will help you, even the citrus oils, which are encouraging, right?
Mhm.
And so I would make a blend, and then I would look at my emotion about the situation, and I would take a Bach flower or two for that and just put a drop or two into the blend, which it doesn't mix totally. So you shake the bottle, but the energy will go into it because it's an energetic, right? So there'll be that connection. So then you're getting kind of a really big dose of relief, which takes very little time. Yeah, that's one thing about the Bach Flower Remedies. They're fast.
Yeah, for sure. And I always say that I gave birth on rescue remedy. I didn't have any drugs at all, just rescue remedy in all three labours. So strong. But I've never studied the Bach flower remedies in depth. So I'm so looking forward to learning the properties of some different kind of flowers and just working on a higher vibration than even the essential oils. I'm so excited about this course. And also, I have to say, there's been quite a few people who have commented on the video and said, oh, this looks really exciting. You are the guys I want here. I want to learn from you. I want you in our little group in the classroom so that we really start to get like a vibration of these really fantastic plant healers. Like vibrational aromatherapy needs to find its feet again, I think, don't you, Shellie?
I do. And it's interesting because, the Uranus in Gemini that is happening astrologically now is reawakening this energetic idea and the intuitive idea. And also even Pluto going through Aquarius. And they actually relate into the chart of Dr. Bach from years and years ago. So it's like the circle is, coming around into a completion when maybe more people are ready to move into the concept of the vibration of the mind and how it affects us and everything around us. And
For sure.
when Uranus is retrograding, it'll go back into Taurus, which is the sign of the plant kingdom. And in that place, making us aware of the vibration of those things is also, perfect combination, the Uranian vibratory rate and the plant kingdom. So it's really time.
Why is Taurus the sign of the plant kingdom? I've never heard that before. Why is it?
Oh, okay. I'll tell you.
Mhm.
Well, all right, so the first sign that we get is Aries. This is the fire, the cardinal fire. We're going to make something happen now. We're going to create something, and when we're looking at conception, the Big Bang that takes place is this conjunction of the sperm and egg, right? And there's this light that goes out. But then there's this process that's going to build a body. And that's Taurus. That's the second sign. So we have to come into a physical experience. And then the mind gets going and we see other things around us, Gemini. All right. So like I can go all the way around the zodiac with this, which is an interesting topic also. But when we come out in physical material world, all the things around us are physical material world. And the plants, particularly mountains, earth, plants come from the earth, you know, Taurus. This is, yes. And that's why I said the roses, the flowers, you know, the tendency to be permanent. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So, you know, this is something that we expect to see. We expect the tree in the backyard to be the same tree the next day. It'll go through cyclic changes, but it's going to stay, right? And we are so divorced from our reality of the fact that agricultural cycles, right, are the backbone of our existence. And so we're going through the end, we're going to the last harvest at November 1st. We've spent all the time picking the fruits and the vegetables and the apples and the grains, and we've gotten to the end of that. And the last thing we'll get is the hops and the grapes. That's why they had Oktoberfest at the end of October.
Oktoberfest, that's right. Yes, yes,
Yes.
exactly right.
So
Yes.
we were very much aware of the land and our grounded energy upon it. And I think, you know, we've gone way up into the head
It's
instead.
true. It's true. So one last question before we go. I want to know, what is the thing that you are most looking forward to about your course?
Well, most looking forward to giving this information to people who will be able to use it, because every tool we can get right now is a blessing. And if you have that tool, you can use it for other people too. You can give it to them. And so I'm looking forward to revealing another tool that I have used. I know it works, and people will get great benefit from it.
I love that. I am looking forward to spending time in real time with all of these brilliant healers. So we're going to be doing this in January. As I say, it is the Bach Flower Remedies and Astrology, but we will be touching on aromatherapy at the beginning of it. And so if you're interested, have a look. What I'll do is I'll the other video about the Bach Flower Remedies at the end of this. So watch another video, go deeper with us, and check out the description for the details of the course, and join us in January. Don't you think, Shellie?
I'll be thrilled to be back.
Lovely. So say goodbye, and we'll see everybody in January. Bye-bye.
Bye.